All right, folks, so the 2018 Elimination Chamber pay-per-view is in the books. A history-making show in a way, because it was the first time that we ever saw an all-women Elimination Chamber match, and the first time we saw a chamber match with 7 guys instead of the usual 6 in the male Elimination Chamber, with the winner of the women's match becoming the women's champion. Of course, it was defended in that chamber, and the winner of the men's Elimination Chamber getting a shot at Brock Lesnar and the Universal title at Wrestlemania 34 in April. Like we talked about before, the male Elimination Chamber match started out with 3 guys, and then they had the regular rules, and the women's was more of a traditional chamber match. Now, the other big thing they promised on this show was the Ronda Rousey contract signing. And last month at the Rumble, they closed the show with the Rumble with the women because Ronda was going to show up. And then they had the men's Rumble earlier. Well, with this show, it was backwards. The women actually opened the show, and the men definitely closed it. The real first match on the show was during the pre-show. It was the Club against the Miz Taraj. You know who's going to win that. The Club won, just the whatever match. Then we had the Women's Chamber match. Now, this Elimination Chamber, I think, is going to be criticized by a lot of fans because this is the second year in a row they've used the newer, more protected chamber. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, the original Elimination Chamber was much, much, much more dangerous because the outside floor, like the outside where the ring is, not the ring, but like the outside portion of the chamber, was like all fence and like gate. It was made up of steel, whereas last year, I think it was last year, they started doing it to where they put mats outside, like padding, to protect the wrestlers. Probably because, that gate is really, really hard. Now, I understand and completely respect the company for wanting to protect the wrestlers, okay? That makes sense. You want to make sure these guys don't get hurt, and the chamber is a very dangerous match. But to be honest with you, I'm not going to BS you around. It does take away from the impact of that chamber. One of the big things about the Elimination Chamber is how every year somebody will take a bump on that gate part, like on the floor, and it would hurt. You would hear the clang in the back, and that's been gone for a couple years, and it really does kind of take away from the match itself. Now, the women's chamber match was Alexa Bliss, Bayley, Mandy Rose, Mickie James, Sasha Banks, Sonya Deville. It was a fun match. It was a decent match, but I don't think it really was as fun as the female Royal Rumble. This was okay, and I think that the girls didn't really try anything too crazy, but there was a crazy bump by Alexa Bliss from the top of one of the pods, which was kind of surprising. They did this really awesome spot that popped me where Sasha Banks hit Mickie James with like a back cracker, like the back smasher, and then right as she was getting up, boom, belly to belly from Bayley. That was awesome. And then Alexa was the last one to go in, and Sasha and Bayley are like in the ring waiting for her so they can double team her. But during this whole like skirmish, Sasha betrays Bayley, and I don't know if it's going to actually lead to the Sasha Bayley feud that we were teased with, last year, but they kind of feuded a bit, and then Sasha and Bayley start going at it or whatever, but then they eliminate Bayley in this really awkward. It looked weird to me, but basically Sasha was talking trash about how she's better than Bayley, which to me was a bona fide heel turn. Like, this is a heel turn to me. She hit a belly to belly, a Bayley to belly on Sasha, and I'm over here like, okay, cool. And then Alexa rolls her up very awkwardly. So it was almost as if, this is very weird. So I'm thinking, okay, it's heel versus heel. They just turned Sasha. It's Sasha against Alexa Bliss as the last 2 women. And then Alexa makes this kind of somewhat babyface comeback. Sasha goes to climb the top of the pod. Alexa shoves her into the pod, does a DDT from the top rope, and gets the win. So Alexa wins the match. And I'm over here thinking, well, wait a minute, like, is Alexa a babyface? So she cuts this face promo where I'm like, okay, she's gonna turn good. And the plan had been for a while to do Alexa against Nia Jax. So I'm thinking, okay, they're turning Alexa, interesting, but no, she turns on the crowd. She says that nobody's better than her and that she's better than anyone, which is funny because the fans cheered even louder. So that to me was interesting. Very weird direction they're going in because The plan has been for a month now to do Nia Jax and Alexa at WrestleMania. That is the plan right now for the Raw Women's title, with Asuka going to SmackDown to challenge Charlotte. And I wonder who's going to be the good guy and the bad guy in that one. I do wonder. Then we had The Bar against Titus Worldwide. I did not care. I was busy ordering a pizza during this time. I did not care about this match. Apollo and Titus are good athletes, but they never get pushed right. And it's just a formality. Cesaro and Sheamus won. There wasn't really much to say about it. It was long, and I didn't care. Then we had Asuka and Nia Jax. The storyline here was if Nia Jax had won, then they would add her to the women's match at WrestleMania, but the Raw Women's Championship match. They did not say for certain that Asuka was going to face off against Alexa Bliss. That was not stated on here because, like I told you guys, the plan is to have her go to SmackDown. So they had a pretty good match here where there was some awkward stuff, but Nia Jax really dominated most of the match, which was refreshing to see. I don't want to see Asuka squash everyone, and if Nia's going for the other belt that Asuka's not going for, I think it makes sense to have Nia look good here. And obviously with somebody like Nia who's big and strong against Asuka, the smaller opponent, more technical, to me it just makes more sense to have Nia get most of the match, and she did. She beat the crap out of Asuka for the majority of the match. Asuka wins where she Oklahoma rolls into a reverse, it was an Oklahoma roll pinfall, gets the 1, 2, 3, and then after the match, Nia Jax beat up on Asuka, like really laid her out and put her through the barricade on the outside. So I'm not sure if they're going for a Nia versus Alexa heel versus heel, because that is the match, that's the plan, or if they're going to turn one of them babyface soon. Alexa actually said in a promo right after that we're about 6 weeks away from WrestleMania and no one's ready for her, but obviously we know it's going to happen. So then we had Matt Hardy versus Bray Wyatt. They did some Matt Hardy wackiness with the special effects and whatnot. This was an okay match. It felt more like a TV match than anything. It was fine. What surprised me was Matt got the clean pin. Matt got the clean pin 1, 2, 3. And I know that Bray won their match on the anniversary Raw. Like, he won that match. So I guess they're doing even-steven booking 1-1. I don't know where they go from here, if they do another match at WrestleMania or not. But Matt Hardy won the match. And I just feel personally that the Woken Matt Hardy gimmick needs a little bit more spice right now. They got to bring in Brother Nero and Maxwell and all that stuff from TNA to really make it fun. I think the feud should continue, but I think it's just kind of getting stale the way it is right now. I don't really like the way it's going, and I want them to add some more twist into the storyline, especially if they're going to keep the Bray Wyatt angle going, because Bray Wyatt's had a really bad run as far as having good feuds. Like, most of his feuds are pretty bad. It's unfortunate, but I do think that he's talented, don't get me wrong, but he's just had, like, really bad stuff. Like, the Randy Orton feud last year was horrible. The Finn Balor feud was an embarrassment, and the Matt Hardy feud is just, like, whatever. It was all right. Then we had the Ronda Rousey segment, which, they wanted to do this match a few years ago after the angle they shot at WrestleMania 31 with The Rock, but they couldn't do it because Ronda wanted to go fight again, and she did go fight again. And I had talked about here on the channel, I pretty much broke the story that they were going to do Angle and Rousey against Triple H and Steph, and this was like them shooting the angle, no pun intended, them beginning the storyline for that. Basically, the storyline was that they had Kurt, Triple H, Paul, Stephanie, and Ronda out there. And Ronda, first of all, this segment right here was kind of a little cringy, all right? First of all, they showed Cain Velasquez and Daniel Cormier at ringside cheering for Ronda, which I thought was awesome. Then, she kind of got emotional. You could tell she was nervous, and I wonder how she's going to be able to, to really do these scripted promos. And I'm hoping that in the future they don't script her, because if you saw Ultimate Fighter and Ronda Rousey, she is a great talker, but that's when she's really, like, in this angle. She has to really be involved in something. It can't just be all scripted. So they basically made it seem like Triple H and Stephanie were happy for her to be there, and the whole story was that Rousey did not want an automatic title shot. She wanted to work her way up and earn it, which I do respect. Great way to bring in a babyface. They were not going to do the Hulk Hogan thing where she was going to win the belt the first night, thankfully. So Kurt said that, they've been talking about her for a while now, and that ever since WrestleMania 31, that they've been planning to bring her back, and he basically said that Triple H told him that, it's 3 years in the way making, and now we own the bitch. And Triple H is like, shut up. So the whole storyline is that it's kind of wacky and kind of silly, but Triple H and Steph were talking trash about Ronda before they signed her, thinking they're going to own her. And Kurt Angle was kind of being the instigator, which I thought was just ridiculous. I mean, it was very funny, but it was kind of immature for these older people to kind of act a certain way. But then again, Kurt Angle has heat. He has a built-in angle with Triple H from Survivor Series, and him and Steph don't get along. So it's not that bad. It's just a little silly. But things get even more wacky from there. Like, we're not even done. So, Triple H trying to get Kurt Angle out of the ring. He's saying that Kurt was sick with the flu, and he's kind of getting delusional. So then, as they're on the outside, this is so wacky. Kurt pretty much tells, and by the way, I should mention that Ronda has a really great, angry face. I thought her angry face was really awesome. So, Kurt, they were all talking about how Stephanie was like, yeah, Kurt's right. You did embarrass us at Mania 31, but we were also very impressed. And then Angle on the outside was like, yeah, Ronda's a has-been, even Steph could take you. And then Stephanie backed away very nervously. And then Hunter gets in, and then Hunter's going to put his arm, I don't know if he's going to grab Ronda or put his arm around her. And then she pretty much just flipped Hunter through a table. She threw him through the table. She put Triple H. Ronda Rousey put Triple H. Ronda Rousey put a 260-pound wrestler through a table. And yeah, if you know judo, you can do things like that. So it's not that unrealistic. And Stephanie comes in and actually slaps Ronda right in the face. And then Ronda has the whole, she's looking down, angry. And then she flips up. And Ronda's face was red, dude. So I really was surprised, that she whacked her. And then Stephanie runs away. And then Ronda signs the contract and throws the cardboard, the thing where you sign the contract. What's that thing called again? The clipboard. Throws it on Triple H, and that's pretty much the angle. Tomorrow night on Raw, they're going to shoot it's going to be a big night. Lesnar's going to be there. All four of these are going to be there. Ronda, Kurt Angle, Triple H, Stephanie. A lot of stuff going on tomorrow night on Raw, so it's going to be a big-time Raw to build up for WrestleMania. And I'm sure they did this angle so that it would be all over ESPN. Then we had the main event. Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, John Cena, Elias, and The Miz in an Elimination Chamber match. The winner will face Brock Lesnar for the Universal title. Should be no surprise to you. We actually knew a year ago. It was reported literally a year ago, February of 2017. A year ago, that the plan for WrestleMania 34 was Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Now, a lot of times WWE does change the plans. That happens frequently. Very rarely do they actually stick to the original plan. This time, they've stuck to it. They've had this match planned for a year. Roman Reigns did indeed win the Elimination Chamber. This was not a very good chamber match. It was very slow, very plodding. The story of the match was that Braun Strowman pretty much dominated and eliminated pretty much everybody except Roman Reigns. He pinned everyone from, Elias to The Miz to Finn Balor to John Cena, which I thought was a huge win. Braun Strowman was the unbeatable monster, and it took several different finishers from every wrestler during the match, and then at the finish, Roman Reigns had to hit him with everything. He hit him with, I think it was, 3 Superman punches, 2 spears in a row, and then pinned Braun Strowman. So they did a great job of protecting Braun Strowman, okay? They really put over Strowman as the guy after Roman Reigns. And they did a good job of having Elias be like the cowardly heel, and The Miz. They had some funny stuff with The Miz and Strowman, how The Miz tried to escape, and then Strowman threw him off the top of the pod, but it was very cringy because you can tell that he took a dive. You can tell he did a crossbody. And then Michael Cole's like, look out below, or something cheesy like that. Just real cheesy stuff here. This was not a good match, though. When Roman gets in there, he starts to punch everybody with uppercuts. They all go down. They're just selling. Strowman comes in. He does the same thing. And the dudes are just sitting there selling, just laying down, because you could tell it. I don't know if it was a missed time. I don't know if somebody screwed up in the back, but you could tell that Strowman was sitting there waiting for Elias to come in as the last entrant. And it was so awkward, man, because he didn't come in. It was so freaking awkward. The match was not very good. This is not one of the top tier chamber matches. It wasn't terrible, don't get me wrong. It was not a terrible match. It just wasn't good. It was boring. It was very slow. There weren't that many great spots. It was just a by the numbers chamber match. That's what it was. Very by the numbers. Roman Reigns wins. Then after the match is over, Braun lays out Strowman, power slams him twice, then throws him through a pod. So I guess the storyline is that they're going to do Roman and Strowman after Mania, but they've also got Seth Rollins there as well to challenge Roman Reigns, so he to get a pin on him on Monday. So again, you've got all these different storylines coming out of Mania, which I think is a good idea because Lesnar's probably going to be gone after Mania, so you want to have an opponent there for Roman when he does win the belt, and he is going to win the belt. Sorry, but that's the plan, that Roman will beat Brock for the title at WrestleMania. So overall, this chamber match was chamber show, pay-per-view, not a very good show. Thumbs in the middle, leaning down. There were no really great matches. Asuka and Nia Jax was okay. The chamber match with the women was fine, but the Elimination Chamber has lost that speciality that it used to have years ago when it was like once every couple of years. They've kind of overdone the chamber, I think, in my opinion, and they've also softened it up. And I know it's an easy gimmick to give like a contender or something like that, you know, to do like an alternate to the Royal Rumble, but personally, this was not very good. Skippable. If you didn't see this show, you don't have to watch it. Just read the results. Maybe watch like the final few minutes of the last match, and that's it, because the whole thing is pretty damn boring. One thing I did not like is that they kept trying to tell us that John Cena... This is a horrible storyline. They're trying to tell us that John Cena, who, by the way, is going to wrestle The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I broke that story here on this channel before anybody else did. The story was that Cena, now that he lost in the chamber, is not going to have a match at WrestleMania. This is so dumb. Do you really believe that John Cena, the guy who was the top guy for 10 years in this company, who has always had a match at WrestleMania, right? Always. Do you really expect the audience to believe he's not going to have a match at WrestleMania? Like, do you really disrespect your audience that much, WWE? Like, fuck, bro. It's a 7.5 hour show, pretty much, WrestleMania. You expect there not to be a John Cena match because he didn't win here? Like, that's embarrassing. That's an embarrassing storyline. I think it's dumb. Like, everyone knows that Cena will wrestle at WrestleMania. We all know this. Come on. Don't insult your audience's intelligence here. And it's going to be against Taker. Obviously, that storyline hasn't begun yet, but it probably will tomorrow night on Raw. And that's what's going to happen. I mean, it's just hard to swallow. Cena's not going to work WrestleMania. It's just a bad storyline, one that's just very unrealistic, and I don't like it. Overall, not a very good show, like I said. Skip it, but tomorrow night on Raw should be interesting because there's going to be a lot of angles that are going to begin going into the biggest show of the year, WrestleMania 34. Lesnar will be there. Ronda will be there. Big, big night. Let's see what happens, and I'll talk to you guys very, very soon. Let me know what you thought about the Elimination Chamber down below in the comments, too.